Hey guys, Zen here, and today we are finally getting into one of the longest awaited updates in the history of Rainbow Six Siege. The Tachanka Rework has been fully outed, and all of the details have arrived, but a few changes that we didn't see coming have also surfaced, and so in this video, we're unpacking everything. So, of course, we must begin with the rework to Tachanka, because most of what we knew was coming is here, but they also introduced a few surprises to the operator. And so, RIP to the mounted turret, because Ubisoft have made it abundantly clear that it is no more, and instead, Tachanka now wields the DP27 LMG. Now, I have spent some time playing with this LMG, and you guys have been asking for some thoughts, and so let's talk about it. So, the destructibility of the weapon is unmatched. Like, it absolutely goes to work on any soft wall or hatch that you put it up against, and something that I noticed almost immediately is that it can actually be used to be more precise with destruction than ever before. As it stands today, the only way to open up a hole in a wall is to use a shotgun, an impact grenade, or maybe the bailiff, and all of those options have a blast radius and open up accordingly. The DP27, on the other hand, uses ammo, and so if you want to open up a precise line of sight, you can easily do that. If you want to get creative and make a full-on cross on a wall, it's a pretty simple task, and so the level of accuracy you get by using the LMG, I think is special. Now, of course, this can be done if you're very careful with some of the other options, but it is also far more challenging than it should be, and so I think this is a feature that makes it unique. The other half of the turret is also the fact that it's Tachanka's new primary weapon, and to that note, I personally don't feel it's that lethal. Its damage is at 48, so yes, it hits like a truck, but the fire rate is only set to 550, which is the slowest firing automatic weapon in Rainbow Six Siege, and you definitely feel it. Another aspect is the recoil on the weapon, and it is manageable in short bursts, but if you start treating it like the LMG it is and hold down the trigger, it just gets out of control, and you'll kind of end up fighting against it, and so pre-firing accurately just really isn't an option. Thankfully though, the devs did end up keeping the VSN submachine gun as part of his loadout, and so if having more killing potential is the goal, Tachanka still does have a more reliable option with the VSN. But it should be noted that they've removed the 1.5 scope from it for Tachanka specifically, and so you will kind of be pigeonholed into using one of the Russian sights, and on top of that, he is still a 3 armor, very heavy and slow operator. So for me, I think the best option early on here is going to be that LMG in the primary slot, because if you choose the VSN, you just lose out on too much. You don't get the incredible breaching potential of the LMG. You don't have access to the 1.5 with the VSN, and you also miss out on the creativity that you can utilize when you pair the new Shumika launcher with the soft breaching of the LMG. I think in most cases, against the assault rifles of the attackers paired with the longer range sights, you are at the disadvantage if all you have to defend yourself is the LMG. But of course, Tachanka's new gadget does an incredible job at holding them off. So the Shumika launcher is the new incendiary grenade launcher for the Lord, and this thing is scary. As of this recording, it has 10 rounds with 5 in the magazine, and these grenades can be fired in rapid succession, but also bounce off of surfaces, and so you don't really need to have line of sight to make an impact. All it takes is one bounce to get the fire started, and whoever is trapped in it will be treated like Goyo or smoke and take damage over time. It is a menacing area denial tool, and there's just next to nothing the attackers can do about it. Now, the real drawback is that after you drain the magazine, the launcher must be loaded one by one, and so it does take a little bit of time before Tachanka is ready to let off grenades again, and it does open up an opportunity for the attackers to restructure. But again, being on the receiving end of this is actually scary, and he's able to get them in those really popular plant spots because of the bouncing, and so I think this gadget will be useful in ranked, and especially when the time is ticking down and the attackers have to get the diffuser planted. The last little surprise of the rework is the Lord's ability to achieve the second coming, because he can now get himself back up if he's downed. So this is a passive ability only available with one other operator, and that's Sophia. In the event one of these operators is downed, they can essentially revive themselves and get back up with only 5 health. Naturally, it is always better to be revived by a teammate or a doc because you get more health, but in a pinch, this can dramatically change the tide of a battle. For the Lord though, this is a little more special because he's an anchor style operator, and there will be many times where he's down behind cover or on site, and it'll be much more challenging for the attackers to finish him off. And so, yeah, gods don't die. Now, that really encompasses Tachanka's rework in its entirety. If you're wondering, he has barbed wire and proximity alarms for secondary gadgets, and I think they're both solid options for what he's now capable of. The verdict, at least for me, is that the Lord is going to be a meta operator, and I can't really think of an instance where he won't be a great pick. Area denial is an essential element of defense, and I won't say he's the best at it because there are some heavy hitters like Smoke, for instance, who've been doing it for a while, but I will say he's a threat threat. And if you can learn to manage the LMG, then there really aren't too many downsides to a Tachanka pick, which is something I don't think any of us expected to be a true statement for Rainbow Six Siege. Now, moving on to a few extra changes coming in this update, and one that's happening for another Russian operator, and that's Glaz. Glaz is getting a pretty substantial buff, and they're going to be reducing the vision recovery time to 0.4 seconds, down from 1 second, and reducing the movement penalty by 50% to 12 seconds, up from 6. So with these changes, Glaz has much more freedom to use his gadget effectively, and the enemy will also stay highlighted for much longer than before. It's no secret that Glaz has needed a substantial buff to make him more viable, and even though I still believe he needs an SMG-11 as a secondary just to give him an automatic option, I like the fact that these changes were made to him to make him more usable. Frost is another operator with somewhat of a surprise buff, and she's receiving the ITA-12S for a secondary, which is the secondary shotgun for both Mira and Jackal. Obviously, this means that Frost is getting some breaching potential, and she'll have the ability to remodel the site. Now, considering most of the other trap operators like Lesion and Kapkan, and even Melusi to some extent, have this ability, I think it makes a lot of sense for Frost. Giving her the shotgun instead of impacts leaves her with a deployable shield, which I think is essential for her welcome mats. And so this is a buff that I'm hoping will boost Frost up a bit and also give her a little more utility. Now, Oryx and Melusi are seeing a pretty major change to the meta, and they'll actually be swapping weapons. Melusi is getting the MP5, and Oryx will get the T5 SMG with an included 1.5 scope, and once I heard this, I was instantly enjoyed. Oryx has desperately needed a stronger SMG. I mean, I play him a lot, and when you knock down a Monty, sometimes you can't get enough ammo into him to take him out, even though he's completely vulnerable, which should never be the case. The MP5 is truly about accuracy and not damage output, and Oryx is more geared to an up-close and aggressive playstyle, and I think the T5 will be a great pairing. Looking over to Melusi, I think the MP5 is perfect for her, considering how dominant the Banshee can be. Now, Melusi is always banned, and a lot of that has to do with her gadget, but I'm sure it doesn't help that the T5 is an incredible SMG that wins a lot of gunfights, and so this is a pretty big nerf to her, but it'll also help to balance out her loadout and hopefully give her more presence. And then lastly, there's Ace. He'll be seeing a nerf to his Selma that'll make it so that they detonate twice instead of 3 times, which will cause smaller holes with the gadget. The devs say this is to make Thermite a little more viable and to tone back the presence of Ace, and I get it. Ace really won't be able to open up a full wall anymore, and that'll make Thermite the man for the job, really. Honestly, I don't think this is going to hurt Ace all that much, because he can still breach a hole big enough for the attackers to get into the site with one Selma, and the AK-12 is still one of the best attacking weapons there is, and so ultimately, Ace won't have as much utility, but he will still be a top-tier operator even after this change. Now, last up here, guys, there's an interesting change coming to the shields in Rainbow Six Siege that will cause the guard break effect to happen if they're impacted by an explosion. Also, they'll now defend people behind them better by absorbing some of that damage and keeping friendly operators protected from the blast. Now, this is interesting because there is somewhat of a nerf and a buff happening here. The buff is that friendlies can now use the shield operator to initiate a push and to take on some of that initial damage from explosions, and the nerf is the fact that guard break will happen as a result, leaving the shield operator exposed and can result in them being taken out. I think overall, being a shield operator is going to be more risky than ever because an impact grenade will essentially be able to expose you to gunfire and make you vulnerable where before you could just eat it. To be honest, I think Montang and Clash in particular are the focus here because they can be extremely tough to deal with, especially just sitting in the corner of an objective because of the full shield. And so this is a massive change to their gameplay, and it's going to be interesting to watch shield mains get adjusted. But that's the end of our video today, guys. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like and subscribe with post notifications if you're new. With that being said, I'll catch you guys in my next video. Hey, I'm out.